Hello, this is Anthony Steinmetz. I'm the lab technician at Christy Machine and Conveyor. In this video, I'll be doing a quick overview of the DE series machine. This is our flagship model and is known for being easy to operate, easy to clean, and easy to maintain, as well as its reliability and versatility. This is a dry material machine and can handle a wide range of products, ranging from powders and granular items such as sugar, flour, or salt, all the way up to larger items such as chocolate chips, nuts, dried fruit, and shredded coconut. In this video, I'll be doing a quick overview of all the different components on the machine. We'll go over some safety features, and then we'll get into some basic operations. So let's get started. Alright, now I'm going to talk about the machine components in depth, starting off with the hopper body. The typical DE machine, we have a standard width, so from the front of the machine to the rear of the machine, that's typically a standard dimension, and then we can make the machine as long as you need, anywhere from 8 inches all the way up to 12 feet. And essentially the DE series is the big brother of the DI series. The two machines are identical from about here down. They have the same agitation system, use the same mounting for the shaft. The big difference between the two machines is that the DE series has a much larger hopper capacity up here. And to compensate for that added weight of the material, we have a head pressure relief plate inside the machine, and that just diverts the weight that would put pressure on the shaft and agitation system and diverts that away from there. So we have the same type of deposit as with the DI. So that about does it for the DE series hopper body. Now we'll talk about shafts. Alright, next up we'll talk about the RDS, aka the shaft. We have a variety of shafts to deposit a variety of materials. Starting off, we'll talk about the knurled shaft. We use these for powders, granular materials, as well as some varieties of sprinkles and some shredded coconut. And we can make anything from a coarse knurl down to a ultra fine knurl, all depending on what the material that you need to deposit is. Next up we have the grooved and toothed shafts. There's a variety of configurations for this. We can have the teeth facing forward, we can have them in the reverse configuration, as well as we can have a modified grooved and toothed shaft which has every other tooth removed. We use these for the larger items such as chocolate chips, dried fruit, or nuts. Next up is the drilled shaft. Basically we just have a series of holes drilled into the shaft, which creates pockets for the material to be picked up in and then dropped out of. And we use these for chocolate pieces, candy pieces, seeds, things of that nature. And the size and spacing of the holes is all dependent on what type of material is being deposited. Then last up, we have a highly specialized shaft, the pinwheel shaft. And I've only had to use this a handful of times so far. And I've used it for delicate items such as chocolate curls. Alright, so that about does it for the basic types of shafts that we offer. And all of those shafts get mounted to the bottom of the machine. We have bearing blocks on either side of the machine that they get mounted into. Typically, we make them out of Delrin, but we can also make them out of aluminum or stainless steel, all depending on the application. Next up, we'll talk about our density plate and wiper assemblies. A lot of people are trying to get away from using nylon brushes, and so now we have these urethane wipers, which serve the same function as the brushes. Basically, the wipers and density plates, they help to retain the material that's inside the machine, as well as they help to keep the shaft clean. And we have a variety of different types of wipers that can be put on the machine. We have regular non-serrated wipers, as well as serrated wipers, both straight and angled serrations on those. We also have extra long serrated wipers, both straight and angled, as well as different thicknesses for the wipers. So there's a lot of variables that go into determining what material is going to be best for you. These wiper and density plate assemblies go on both the front and the rear of the machine. For those facilities that are allowed to use nylon brushes, we also offer nylon brushes as well. And typically we would mount them to the bearing blocks on either the front and or the back of the machine. And we also have a density plate mounted option as well. Next up, we'll talk about the agitation system. The agitation system runs off of the RDS via an agitation link. The agitation link attaches to the agitation shaft, which attaches to an agitation blade and a set of movable walls. The movable walls and agitation blade gently rock the material back and forth, preventing it from bridging up inside the machine. So we have a nice steady flow of material right to the shaft. So we do offer different sizes for the agitation blades. Once again, it's all dependent on what type of material is being ran through the machine. And we also offer a 360-degree agitation system as well, in the form of a leveling auger. And every once in a while, there'll be a material that runs through the machine well enough that it does not require an agitation system, but typically we have a standard agitation system installed in our machines. All right, now we'll talk about motors real quick. Typically, the motors will get mounted to the side of the hopper wall right here on a monopole, and we can configure that to whatever type of motor that you'd like to have mounted on your machine. Typically, we deal with Bison's, Bodine, and Leeson motors. So now I'll just mention a few other options that we are capable of doing. We're capable of putting high and low level sensors on the machine, photo eyes, pattern control systems. We also work with reclaim systems and vacuum-ax systems as well. So those are some other options that we have. And lastly, we'll talk about the mounting systems that we offer. Right now, I have this machine on a C-frame and cradle system. This allows you to quickly and easily move the whole machine on and off the line if you have to do a wash down, changeover, or line maintenance. It's also height adjustable as well. And we also offer a semi-permanent mounting option as well, which is a rail system that gets bolted down to your conveyor frame. So that about does it for our overview of the DE series machine. All right, I'm going to talk about safety real quick. The main danger with this DE series machine is getting your hand caught inside the machine between the shaft and the front wiper. So in order to negate that, all of our new machines come standard with safety rods that go across the top of the hopper here. The slots are big enough to allow for your product to go through, but they're too small to allow hands to get down inside the machine. Then outside the machine, just be mindful of the moving parts. So you'll have movement in the coupler, the RDS, and the agitation link. So as a general rule, especially if you have a cradle like this, if you keep your hands outside of the cradle, you should be good to go. So that about does it for the safety. Now we'll move on to basic operations. Alright, now we'll go over some basic machine operations, show you how to turn the machine on and off, as well as increase and decrease the amount of deposit that you're getting out of the machine. So I have our motor plugged into our control box, and typically we'll mount this to the upright on the C-frame or on the cradle itself. And on our basic controller, we have an on-off switch and a radial speed control dial. So to turn the machine on, flip the power switch to the on position, and then take your speed dial and move that to about 50%. It's typically where we're going to be running at. If you need more of a deposit, go ahead and increase that percentage. And if you need less, go ahead and turn that dial down. That will slow the speed of the shaft down. Then to turn the machine off, take your power switch and turn it to the off position. And I mentioned it earlier, but I'll say it again. On a typical operations, the shaft is going to be rotating towards the front of the machine. So looking at it from the motor end of the machine, it's going to be rotating counterclockwise. Next up, I'm going to show you how to put together a wiper density plate assembly. You'll need to know this in case you want to complete a machine component washdown, or if you need to replace your wiper. The wipers will wear out over time and need to be replaced. So the tools that you'll need include a 6-inch scale and a 3/8 nut driver. And the main components include the density plate, the wiper. This happens to be a regular straight serrated wiper, and the hold down. So if you're installing a new wiper and it has no holes, take your old wiper and place it over top of the new wiper material. With a Sharpie marker, trace the holes, then use a sharpened punch to punch the holes out. So then you take your wiper and line up the holes with the studs on the density plate, and go ahead and push that down so it's nice and even up against the density plate. Next, take your hold down and do the same thing. Line up the holes with the studs, push that down until it sits flatly on the wiper. Next, you want to take your hex nuts. I like to thread them onto the studs until they nearly are touching the hold down. This will help us out later. Alright, so now that we have our hex nuts threaded onto the studs, we want to make sure that our exposure across the whole length of the wiper and density plate assembly is even. As you can tell, the exposure is less in the middle right now than it is on the end. We have a much wider exposure over here. That's going to affect the deposit, so you want a nice even exposure to have a nice uniform deposit. So we'll start off taking our 6-inch scale, and we'll start at the middle stud on our density plate. And take your scale, press it up against the edge of the hold down, and measure to the edge of the wiper. And then to make your adjustments, you either pull the wiper material out or push it in. So I need to pull it out a little bit to get our 1/4 inch exposure that we're going to shoot for. And once you have it, go ahead and take your nut driver and just snug it down. Don't over tighten it. You just want it to hold. Alright, then take your scale and slide it down to the next stud. It looks like we're going to need to pull it out a little bit more along the way here until we have a nice even 1/4 inch exposure. Alright, then go ahead and snug it down and just continue that process until all the studs are snugged down. This can be a little time consuming, but it's critical. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we want to ensure that we did not over tighten our hex nuts. So to do that, we're going to turn the assembly on its edge and look down it, just like you would if you were going to check the straightness of a board. And what we're looking for are little waves in the wiper, and those will be right where the studs are. If you see any waves there, go ahead and back off the hex nut a little bit. So I got just a little bit right on this one. Go ahead and loosen that up. Loosen up just a little bit more. Loosen this one up just a little bit. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now we have our density plate and wiper assembly all ready to put on our machine. Alright, so I have the density plate and wiper assembly ready to go, ready to put it on our machine. So what you're going to do is line up the slots on the density plate with the studs at the bottom of the hopper. And then take your wing nuts and snug them up. It can be a little tricky getting them started at this angle. But you don't want to tighten them up just yet. Just get them so they're down close to the density plate. Then what you do is you look inside the machine and adjust the density plate so that the wiper is just touching the shaft. You want it to be even across the board there. So then go ahead and tighten your wing nuts up once you have the wiper up against the shaft. Now I'm going to show you how to assemble a standard agitation system and install it inside the machine. The tools that you'll need include a 1/4 inch wrench and a 5/32 Allen wrench. Now we'll go over our parts real quick. This is our agitation blade. It has a yoke on each end. We have our movable walls here. We have an agitation shaft, 3 set screws, and our movable wall links. And lastly, we have our agitation arm, agitation link, and the bolt that holds those together. So to get started, take your agitation blade, place that in the middle, right between your 2 movable walls. Next, take your movable wall links and connect them to your agitation blade and your movable walls. There's 2 on each side. You want to make sure that they're pushed in all the way. Next, what I like to do is take a couple of the set screws and just get them started in the yokes. It can give you something to hold on to later when we assemble it. All right, now we're ready to put the movable walls and agitation blade inside the machine. So to do that, I'm going to carefully flip the movable walls up, kind of tent them up. And then what I always do is put one hand on one side, one hand on the other side, and just push those links in just a little bit more, just to make sure that they're seated properly and they're not going to fall out. All right, now this is ready to go inside the machine. All right, so we're going to carefully take our movable wall and agitation blade assembly and carefully slide it down inside the machine until you get to the bottom, and spread your movable walls out. If your machine is on a cradle, you're going to have to remove a couple of the screws in order to allow the machine to tilt down, because the way it's designed, the hole for the agitation shaft is blocked by the cradle. So I already took those bolts out and it's tilted down so I can get my agitation shaft in there. So now what you're going to have to do is pick up on the agitation blade in the middle and line up the hole in the yoke with the hole for the agitation shaft, and go ahead and insert your agitation shaft in there. You want to try to keep them as lined up as possible so it doesn't bind. It can be a little tricky, a little finagling. Now this is why I like to put those set screws in, because I can use that to pick up on and line it up. There we go. Then what you want to do is line up your flats on the agitation shaft with your set screws, and then we'll go ahead and tighten those down. All right, now we are ready to put the bolts back in the side of the hopper and cradle. So go ahead and line those up. Okay, I'm going to use our wrench to tighten those down. I believe it's a 1/2 inch wrench. Alright, now you take your agitation link and agitation arm, and we're going to attach those to the shaft. We do have a couple different varieties of these. We always want to make sure that you have a completely flat side going up against the agitation arm here. So we'll take our bolt and attach those. Your 5/32 Allen wrench to tighten that down. So now that's all assembled. Go ahead and take your set screw and just get it started on your agitation link. Now we're going to go ahead and place this on our agitation shaft. Make sure that the flat on the end of the agitation shaft corresponds with the set screw, and you just want to push it up there until the agitation arm is flush with the RDS down here. Now I'll go ahead and finger tighten the set screw. You can tighten that down. Okay, we're going to take the bolt that goes and connects the agitation system to the RDS and install that. You might have to move your agitation shaft a little bit to get the holes to line up. We'll go ahead and tighten that down. And you're all set. Alright, now I'm going to show you how to take the shaft off of the machine. You need to know this if you're going to do a thorough cleaning of the shaft, or if you're going to change the shaft out for a different one. So the tools that you're going to need are a 1/2-inch wrench as well as a 5/32 wrench. So first thing you want to do is detach your agitation link from the RDS. So use your Allen wrench to do that. Set that aside. You can flip the agitation arm up if you want. Alright, next up we're going to have to take the density plate and wiper assemblies off on both the front and the rear of the machine. So just undo the wing nuts that are holding those in place. Alright, next up we're going to take our 1/2-inch wrench and we're going to loosen up the bolts on our bearing blocks. I like to take one out of one side and then one off the other side so we don't put too much stress on the shaft and bearing blocks. You want to make sure to support it by holding it in the middle here. We'll take the other bolt off of this side and the final bolt. Alright, so here's our shaft that we just took off the machine. We need one more tool. It's an 1/8-inch Allen wrench to undo the set screw on the coupler. Alright, then you can take the coupler off. Then we'll just go ahead and slide the bearing blocks off of either side, and now you're ready to either clean the shaft or replace it with a different one. Then when you're ready to install the shaft, just follow these steps in reverse. Alright, next up I'm going to go over the inverted V pattern control system. This is a good option if your product on your conveyor belt is in dedicated lanes or rows. And basically what this does is it diverts your deposit onto those dedicated lanes, and that reduces the amount of waste that you have. The beauty of the inverted V pattern control system is that it is adjustable side to side. So if you have multiple sizes of products that you run, you can adjust the lanes depending on what you're running that day. All you have to do is loosen up the set screw on the back of each one and then adjust it side to side. And once you have the proper spacing, go ahead and tighten it down and you're ready to go. Alright, now we're going to talk about cleaning real quick. Here at Christy Machine and Conveyor, we design and build our machines with sanitation as one of our top priorities. So let's say that you want to do a quick wash down on your DE machine. It's completely wash down ready. So what I would do is take the density plates off the front and rear of the machine. I would take the head pressure relief plate out of the machine as well and go ahead and wash it down. So you want to make sure to wash out behind the movable walls as well. And to do that, you just gently push up on the bottom of the movable wall and it will flip up. And you can wash behind it Once you have it cleaned to your satisfaction, go ahead and replace it and flip up the other movable wall and repeat the process. If you need to do a heavy duty clean, you can totally disassemble the machine. You can take the shaft off the machine by taking the bearing blocks off of the hopper body itself. You can also completely disassemble the agitation system. And once everything is cleaned to your satisfaction, go ahead and dry it off and then reassemble and you're ready to go. Alright, that about does it for this overview of the DE series machine. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, feel free to contact us. And on behalf of Christy Machine and Conveyor, I just want to thank you for your interest in our depositors, and I hope you have a great day.